Hey everyone, Ripley Sellers with Bob's Watches. I'm here in the studio with Justin for another episode of Vintage of the Week, where we pull aside one remarkable timepiece and share with you exactly why we love it. Well, Justin, got a cool one today, but before we get into it, a quick wrist check. What do you have on?
Wrist check. I'm rocking the Rolex 16700, Rolex GMT Master. Got the Pepsi bezel, beautiful watch, classic. Wore it a lot, I love it.
Classic and very much kind of related to this one as far as kind of crossover with the Sapphire Crystal.
Yeah, a little bit of the same time period kind of thing we're going to be talking about, but we'll get to that. What are you wearing today?
Well, the modern version of what we'll be talking about, current production, Rolex Submariner date, 126610 LN, current, latest and greatest sub.
Beautiful watch, yeah, hard to go wrong. Well, that brings us to what we're talking about. We got a gorgeous 16800 Submariner, right? Why don't you get right into it? Let's hear a little bit about it.
The sub, it's one of the icons of Rolex's history, introduced in '53, been in production ever since. One of the world's very first dive watches, really doesn't need much of an introduction. I mean, but throughout that time, it has undergone plenty of updates, plenty of overhauls, and probably one of the biggest came with the arrival of the 16800.
Yes.
And that also, it's, you know, called a transitional sub because it expresses physical details from the previous series and the ladder. So this one, at a quick glance on the exterior, it almost looks like the ladder 16610, aluminum bezel, 40 mil case, sapphire crystal, 1,000 feet, 300 meters water resistance. But then you look at the dial, matte dial, tritium lume, totally looks like the previous gen, like a 1680.
Yeah, this, I mean, out of any Submariner, I think if something can be two things at once, it's this one, right? I mean, it's somehow both old and new. Like you said, you look at the dial, there's no surrounds, it's got the tritium. I mean, this one has that gorgeous patina on it that's that kind of like dark burnt color, but then also sapphire crystal, and it's pretty modern. You know, we have the 1,000 feet of water resistance. So this one, to me, is a really great watch because it lives in that very small window of a little from the past, a little from the present. I mean, I think it's gorgeous.
Just like how your GMT is the only regular GMT before they switched the GMT 2 that had a sapphire crystal. This, it's the only Rolex sub you're going to get that has a matte dial with a sapphire crystal.
Right.
So you get this very clear, uninterrupted view of what is an inherently vintage design detail. And I mean, I can't think of a better, more symmetrical, gorgeous, rich patina than this. I mean, it all matches on the bezel insert pip even, gorgeous.
It's great, and I love that. I am a big fan of sapphire crystals. I like that the acrylic is, you know, vintage and heritage, and it fits. But in terms of performance, I gotta go with the sapphire. I love how strong it is, and I love how little I scratch it, and I just don't really have to worry about it. And to get such a great looking, you know, vintage dial paired with that sapphire, it's a good opportunity for me. I mean, I love that about this, and it would be a big excuse for me to wear this one very, very often.
Oh, yeah, 100%. It's the vintage watch you can actually wear all day, every day, and not have to worry about it too much. You get what is effectively like a 16610 as far as its build quality,
sure,
but it looks vintage. I mean, look at it next to my current production sub right here. It doesn't look like it's a definitively vintage watch, you know?
Yeah.
Very, very different. But even when you look at its direct successor, the 16800 or the 16610, just having that glossy black dial with applied white gold markers totally changes the look of the watch. But with this one, you get, instead of 200 meters, you get a 300 meter depth rating.
Right.
You get a slightly more modern bracelet style, same thing you'd get on, you know, subsequent generations. But you get beautiful lume, open 6s, open 9s. This particular example dates to about 1983 approximately.
Yeah.
And I mean, speaking of this example, what a gorgeous one.
That's what I was going to say.
Basically unworn.
Yeah.
Like, probably tried on a few times, but like, the bevels are crisp and polished, the brushing's perfect. I mean, there's not a mark on the insert.
This watch is amazing. I mean, and you know, when we talk about Vintage of the Week, we're always talking about this particular watch, right? Because this watch is the one we're talking about. It's actually for sale on Bob's website, you know, as this goes live. So we talk a lot more about condition and things like that. And this one, oh my gosh, it's gorgeous. I mean, like you said, it could very easily been tried on a couple times, put in the safe, put in the sock drawer, whatever, and just left.
Yeah, this one's about 83. Mine's almost a decade newer. Mine's in terrible shape compared to it. I mean, just look at this bracelet as far as how tight that is. This is like, and this is its original bracelet. G marking on the clasp dates it to about 1982, entirely appropriate for the serial for this watch. This is kind of a dead stock example, about as close as you can hope to get for something from, yeah,
absolutely.
40 years ago.
And I don't have a problem when the watches show some age. And I've said before, I like that. It's part of the history of the watch. I mean, this watch has lived a lot of years, and it's built the character. So I don't really have any problem with that. But it's just so amazing to see such a clean example of this. It's just something you don't see every day. It's just extra special.
Oh yeah, couldn't agree more. And also, I mean, if you are going to get the vintage watch that looks pristine, get it pristine all the way. And the nice part about this is, if you wear it up, you might scratch up the insert, you might put some scuffs on the case, but that dial under that nice hard sapphire crystal is probably, unless you flood it or something, which not likely with the sub, it's going to stay looking nice and beautifully so. There's not going to get covered in scratches on the crystal. You're going to always be able to see that dial as the party piece.
Exactly. And the wear that you do put on it is kind of your history that you're adding to it. I mean, it's lived a very delicate life up until this point, yet, if you buy the watch and put it in your regular rotation, and it does get some of that character, I like to call it, that it's nice. It's yours, I mean, this watch has been around a long time, and all the character came from your wrist. That's kind of special.
That's very true. Rarely do you get to write your own history on a watch that's had a previous life, but on this one, if it did have a previous life, it was surrounded by pillows.
You can talk, exactly where that one came from, the baseball that day, and that one came from the car, and
I mean, I think this also sort of sits at a nice spot for that person that wants a vintage watch, but doesn't necessarily want some of the drawbacks that often accompany it, like 30-35 movement in here, so you get a quick set date. As we've already mentioned, 300 meters of water resistance, sapphire crystal, uni-directional bezel. It's a very functional daily wear watch, but definitively vintage appearance. And for that person that doesn't necessarily want to commit to a full vintage timepiece where you might not have the quick set date and that might irk you down the line, this is an easy option that really kind of lets you have one foot in both worlds without sacrificing anything as far as its appearance.
That's a really good point. It does have all those kind of modern takes to it, but it looks much older than it is. When you see the dial, you feel like that dial's 50s, 60s, 70s, and it's from '83. So, like you said, you do get that performance, and you do get the reliability and some of the other benefits that come with, the newer generation. But you also get the look of the older generation, which is awesome.
Yeah, and that also worth pointing out. This isn't indicative of all 16800s. Near the end of the production, they switched to the more modern style of dial. So if you damaged your dial, that's what Rolex would replace it. So the number of these in existence has been, they didn't even do it the whole production run of the 16800, but it's always been decreasing as some have been destroyed or just simply sent to Rolex. Yeah, someone wanted it to glow again, and then there goes the matte dial, never to be gotten back again. So it's far more rare to see these out and about than you would actually think, but man, it's kind of one of those hidden gems in the vintage sub-canon.
This is a beautiful watch. I would love to add it to my collection. Someone will. Someone will. It's for sale. Someone will pick it up. So yeah, if you're interested or you're looking for, got a great, pretty much new old stock example, go to Bob's Watches and check this one out. It's definitely a winner.
Well, that about wraps it up for this episode of Vintage of the Week. Don't forget to tune in next time to see what watch we'll have for you then.